Couple familiar faces in here. How you doing? Good to see you again. How's everybody doing? Solid. So little bit of background. I've been doing this for about 6 years on this panel, and there's been a bunch of great people that have come through from a lot of different businesses, wealth management practices, tax accountants. Myself, my name's Pat Benden. I've worked at PitchBook for about 10 years. I am in a kind of client-facing sales role, but predominantly working around alternative assets, private markets, work with hedge funds, investment banks, private equity firms, those kind of end clients. And I can bring to the table a little bit of acumen about the different markets, different roles of those markets, can talk about kind of opportunities and how you want to kind of set yourself up to maybe go down a couple of different avenues, and can, of course, answer anything about the collegiate process and getting onto the working world right away. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm going to hand it down here and let each of these gentlemen talk a little bit about themselves and introduce themselves.
Great. Dean Benyon. I've been involved in investments as a financial advisor, stockbroker in the old days since 1987. That's a while. I'm one of those guys that I think, Kirk, you were too. They gave us a phone book and we just called people. And believe it or not, in 1987, you could call people and they would just send you money. You would sell them a bond on the phone. You'd never met them and they'd send you 25, 50 grand. I used to write letters. Hey, you should buy this bank stock. And I think people would call me and say, how do I get that? I mean, now you just, that doesn't happen. And I'm completely clean U4, so I've never done anything illegal, but it sounds illegal, right? I mean, like you shouldn't be able to do that. Anyway, so I've done this a while. I've worked mostly at large wirehouse brokerage investment firms, but 2012 started my own wealth management firm, Kimball Creek Partners, and we're located here in Tacoma. So 5 years ago, we moved down here from Bellevue to Tacoma because I hate driving to Bellevue. So,
amen.
I've hired people, quite a few, do some hiring now. Teach Business 490, the winter quarter, it's great. I probably have more direct experience with my own children, coaching them to get jobs in different areas. I have a son who is a private equity guy, worked for a pension fund as an analyst, when he's an IT guy at Goldman Sachs. I mean, I've watched that kind of career path. It's just different than what it was, but I'm happy to give you whatever insights I have into how to get started, because it's changed a lot since Kirk got started. Yeah. There you go.
We're just doing some introductions here. Okay. Come on in. Kirk, you want to do your introduction? We'll pop back over this way.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kirk Mandlin. I was just like you. I grew up 116th and Pacific. I went to West Washington High School, and I did not have the opportunity to come to UWT because it didn't exist. I got to go to Western after a little bit of community college. Actually, I got my AA degree, but I started off rough. My life was rough. Oldest 7 kids on welfare. My first quarter at Pierce College now, a C, an incomplete, and an F. For GPA 1.0, they said you do that again, you lose your Pell Grant. Any of you that are on a Pell Grant, the government was paying me to go to school, they're paying for my education. So I had to straighten myself up. I had to figure out what I was going to do in life. And I was lucky to have a couple of really key people, and I'll talk about the importance of having key people in your lives. That I came across, made an entirely different set of decisions. Met my wife up at Western. We've been married for 34 years. And I started in this business as a financial advisor just down the street here, 13th of Broadway, at a firm called Dean Witter. It doesn't exist anymore. It's now Morgan Stanley. And there, as Dean said, you got a stack of cards with people's names and phone numbers, a phone, and their best wishes. And you had 1 year to make it because you were off of a salary in 1 year. So you were 100% commission. And the Series 7 was rough too, because 2/3 of the people that took the Series 7 at that time failed. I already said I wasn't a particularly good student. I got better, had to get better. And so it couldn't be close to me. I had to make sure that I was going to make it. So I studied as hard as I could. I got an 88 on the exam, which people say I overstudied. But to me, it was all or nothing. And I still feel that way every day when I wake up. I have to do my very best for clients. I now went into management, by the way. The top position I had was a regional director for Morgan Stanley for sales and marketing in a region that was number 1, 2, or 3 in the firm and anything that mattered. And then in 2012, I had the opportunity to come to Portland. And in 2017, more importantly, a friend of mine said, hey, I want to retire. Why don't you come back and work with individual clients? Because I was running the state of Oregon then. Come back and work with clients and move back to Olympia, which was our home. And so since then, I started working with clients. From 2017 till this month, I have brought in $130 million. For our practice, I manage $175 million, me and my staff, for individual investors who are just like your parents and your grandparents, and they're retirees and pre-retirees. But I've hired a lot of people. I'd like to think I've been successful, and I think I know what makes success. So my goal will be to help you to sort out what can you do to do 2 things. 1, be successful, but 2, differentiate yourself from the person next to you. Because life is a competition. It's a competition to get the job. It's a competition to keep the job. It's a competition to grow in that job. So I'm really pleased to be with you today.
Thank you very much. We've each gone. Would you mind popping in now? Going?
Sure. My name is Luna Bassett, and I grew up in Olympia, actually. I work at Morgan Stanley. I'm a financial advisor there. Been there for 15 years. I've kind of done a few different things. I graduated from PLU. I'm pretty local. Yeah, very local. I kind of just knew I wanted to be a financial advisor. I remember when I was pretty young, and my parents were immigrants from India, so I was born here. They were one of the very first immigrants in the state of Washington. My dad was the second immigrant from India in the state of Washington, and his brother was the first. They went to University of Washington. He was a civil engineer, worked for the state of Washington. He was just like, this is God's country. So, and when I was growing up, there was nobody from India there. I mean, Olympia was just like all white. I mean, there was one other brown person in the school that I went to, and his name was Jerome. And it was just like, that's all it was.
You and Jerome.
Me and Jerome. And it was just a different world then. But my dad, they had this guy come to their house one night. We were going to be playing outside, and he was going to talk to him about financial stuff. And they were talking about stocks and bonds. I guess my dad was going to bet some money. And then he left. And then I remember him talking to my mom, and then they were like, well, yeah, that just cost $500. And I think I was like 12 or something. It was like, you just paid that guy $500? And he was here for an hour, we were there for an hour, or something like that. It's like, wow. And they're like, yeah, we're going to buy Occidental Petroleum or something. That was, it was in the 70s. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to like go to someone's house and talk to them for an hour. Anyway, so that's just what I did. I majored in finance and got a job right out of college. When I don't know, I don't want to hear all the details.
Well, I think one thing is very helpful. One thing that I said before we hopped into it is a couple of different angles here. Hey, what's it like getting out of college and getting into the workforce? What's it like working in that initial role, maybe wanting more, understanding how to kind of move up, how to leverage your network and build relationships to take advantage of things like that. And then I think even, licensing, looking at specific education tracks to help kind of influence and learn and, point in the right direction. I think anything that any three of you can offer about that is going to be wildly helpful.
So it was just different. There were not a lot of women wanting to go in finance, especially then. There's still not, honestly.
Ditto, small sales team of women at PitchBook.
Yeah.
There's a couple, and then
Yeah, so I mean, if you're not to, well, there's men and women here, but like if you're a woman and you're wanting to go in, I mean, you have an advantage. Just
highly sought after. PitchBook's always looking for, female professionals for the sales team, the new sales team.
right? So just kind of know that and add that to your self-confidence thing. And women do particularly well because of the soft skills. Not to say that men don't have that. I'm a little biased.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Maybe you could comment on this. So I would say in our practice, I mean, it is a problem, right? So I would
Yes.
encourage, we need more women advisors. But what you may not know is probably 80% of my book are women.
Mm,
Interesting.
And so that's again, it's not only an underserved number of advisors, but I'll bet as your clients age, I mean, women live longer than men.
It just.
Divorce happens. I mean, things happen.
It just
but it's
happens
just-
organically.
Yeah.
You start to serve retired couples or people. And then if you've been doing this for a long time, eventually someone dies in a couple, right? And usually it's the man. And so, I mean, that's just an actuarial fact. And
Yes.
women outlive men. And so then you have the woman as your client. And a lot of times, as we all know, statistically, if you don't have, a lot of times the women will change advisors. So as a woman, if you have that relationship with the woman, instinctually, you do.
You have an inherent bias to
Well, but I think part of that is, and this is our own experience, and Kirk, you probably see this too. I mean, as a man, you have to consciously connect with
Right.
both spouses. I mean, you know, in our industry, we talk a lot about that because in the old days, right, when I got started in the 80s, I mean, it was a boys' club. And
For sure.
you know, people talk about going golfing and doing all these things and hanging out. I'm not a drinker or a smoker or any of those traditional things that were kind of the 80s. And you have to be able to connect with both spouses.
well, and not to
You
go.
have a very narrow relationship.
So one thing I
If
did.
you're a man, I'm just saying, be aware of that because our business involves both spouses.
Well, I want to take a quick poll from you guys because I don't want to, we have a couple of wealth managers and then I'm on this finance side. I'm sure there's a lot of you that are looking at a multitude of different angles here. So maybe a show of hands here. Is anybody from a finance perspective looking at wealth management as a potential kind of next? Yeah, seriously, raise them high. Let me see. It's helpful. Okay, about half the room, a third of the room. Okay, how about accounting? I know there's accounting going on next door, but anything like back office finance related, more accounting related? Anybody kind of thinking about those ends? Okay, there's also an AI component to discuss around a couple of these things too. I've talked to a couple of folks last week at Moss, had a Michael Brookman, forgetting his last name, from Moss Adams, he's a managing partner, and talking about how their advisors, they're now hiring and looking for skill sets with people that can speak and present and critically think more than just shuffle away in the back office and just number crunch. Machines and AI are kind of unlocking folks to be able to spend more time not doing those and actually working with clients. At the end of the day, whether you're working for, Big Five or, Microsoft or whatever, you're selling a product or service, right? So these companies are inherently looking for folks with skill sets that fit that because, again, the need for a lot of that monotonous work is going away. So kind of another thing to think about as well as we talk about things.
Yeah. Can I also mention that there is a huge need in the workforce in America for people of color. Our firm, and I can speak to our firm, we think our firm should look like our community, and it doesn't. We have 28% females, but less than 10% people of color. And that is not our communities. We're in every strip mall in America. There's 17,000 people you see in Edward Jones everywhere. And so those of you that may look up here, and I'm really glad you're here, ma'am, because the world is changing. And the opportunities that you have, and Hunan said, you have a leg up because there is a focus on rounding out our workforce to look like our communities, because you're going to naturally serve women, communicate differently with women than they do with men. So with my wife and her friends, it's all about the relationship, and there's books and there's wine and there's hugging, and that's not, Dean and I just spent an hour together. We didn't hug once. And so, that's different, but also people with color. If you're not traditionally Caucasian, then you're going to know the mores and the morals and the culture of the person you're talking to. I have a partner that is Vietnamese. He is killing it in the Vietnamese market in Olympia. It's not a big market, but he's the only one there. And the reason why I hired him, brought him out from Philadelphia, is because I knew he was going to kill that market. It's not a market I can. They'd rather talk in their native tongue. He understands where they're coming from. He understands the family dynamics of the parents and the moms and the dads and all. I don't know any of that. So just know, as I look around here, and that's one of the things I think that makes this university wonderful, is it is a melting pot. And so you have a leg up where you may not have had one 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Fantastic point. Fantastic point. Any questions? Can we, anything you guys got, we can get into it. Literally, education-wise, how should we position ourselves to get that job? How do we network? Anything like that. But I'd love to see, let's talk. Yeah, what's going on?
All right, so my first question is, I've looked into wealth management internships and things like that across the board, and I noticed that a lot of them use the term higher view. And I was kind of wondering if you guys can give some information into that and some insight.
I am less familiar with this. The higher view, is this a term that either?
What's the context?
Wealth management internships, asset management internships, they use the term higher view. And I know what an interview is, but I'm a little less versed in what a higher
Do you
view
have
is.
context to add to that? Yes.
So higher view is basically just a video pre-interview, just to kind of start you out before they actually look at your resume and application.
Okay, so now I have not heard this, but this is really interesting because this goes back to what I was just talking about. How do you present in front of people? People want a front-facing individual right now. Does that answer a lot of the question there? Okay, are you doing this at?
It's a big deal, because I just hired someone, I hired a financial, it's at Morgan Stanley, and I think also at Merrill Lynch and UBS, the big wirehouses. They have programs called FAA programs, so you're a financial advisor associate for usually 3 years, where you come in and it used to be you'd hire them and just had to cold call, and it was
Here's the phone book. Good luck.
Yeah, but now it's more they match you up with a more senior advisor, and you really are supposed to really help them or a team or something. So I just hired a financial advisor associate, someone that I've known. Actually, I known him since he was in grade school, because he was good friends with my daughter. They went to, I've known him since second grade. I used to volunteer at the school and do flashcards with the multiplication table. So he was a really smart kid and super outgoing. In middle school, all the girls had crushes on him, super cool kid. So he had an advantage, right? Sadly, it's kind of those kind of things, because you really want to have confidence in the person, but it's the soft skills. You don't have to be the genius in the room. I wouldn't go out there if you're doing a higher view. I would really be showing off your personality more than all the amazing things that you could do. Just a couple things that I remember, because I was an intern when I was at PLU at Shearson Lehman Brothers.
That's a name that does not exist anymore.
Believe it or not. And I can remember I had this resume, and I was doing for this woman, and she had my resume, and she's like, you need to cross all this stuff off your resume. You don't want people to know that you can do 10 key and you can type X amount of words a minute and all this stuff. That's not what you do. You have people do that stuff for you. Get that stuff off, and you're not admin in any way, so get all this stuff off and you have to show off like who you are as a person. And, yeah, because we want, like, if you're gonna hire someone or you're gonna hire.
Say tap the, I'm curious on all of you here.
To help you, you want someone your clients are gonna feel comfortable and confident in talking to and trust. Even if they don't maybe know all the details of how you manage your portfolios, you want them to feel solid and.
Can you touch on that too? Like, because you're giving their book of business to a person you're hiring. Like, these are your, like, how did,
So I'd say a couple things. First off, I'd say, because there's a lot of you have different aspirations, don't be afraid to write targeted resumes or targeted hire views or whatever, because you're right. You touched on a really good point that I don't really care if you can 10K anything anymore, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but I might care if you're pretty good at social media because we do a lot of podcasts, and so those are things that might help. It's just different, right? I would say the same thing. I mean, soft skills. We just went through last year hiring process to get an office manager, and you know what? We just go through so many resumes, and it's just so hard to distinguish stuff. I would say in the wealth management business, and I don't know about you guys. So I was 12 years old. My dad took me to the New York Stock Exchange, and I've known since then. I was fascinated with investments. I took every class I could take. I have an undergraduate and a master's degree in finance, and that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. One of my good friends has her degree in interior design, and she's one of the most effective advisors I've ever known. She's phenomenal. And she drives me nuts because she can walk up to somebody with millions. She just put her arm around him. She's a close talker, and she'll be right in here like this, and I'd get sued for that. Right? Crazy. But she's smart. I mean, she just knows stuff. But that wasn't necessarily her education. And so, not to downplay your education, because I'm a big fan of education, but understand that it's more than just passing a finance class. That's like, it's good to understand that. What we care about, what I care about when I look at your education is, can you learn? You got to show me that you can learn, because I will teach you what I want you to know at our firm. I will teach you because I want you to do it our way. When in the 80s, when I was doing MBA school and everybody was doing MBAs, because that was the thing, I don't see that as much. I see more companies would rather pay for your MBA if they think you need it, but they want to train you in their way. And so don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of, I think, especially right out of school, I give advice. I think you want to focus on your resume. By that, I mean, you probably don't want to start at a boutique wealth manager like me. You probably want to be at Morgan Stanley or a big name firm that everybody knows. Because if you can succeed there, you'll succeed with me. So I'd rather hire somebody that you've trained, right? Because we're smaller, right? We have a few staff. We don't have a big budget now, but I'm saying build your resume. And so when you get out of school, that first job, and they make you an offer, and it's $10,000 less than another offer, I would think long and hard, what's that going to look like on your resume? And I know that's a hard economic fact. Some of you may need that extra $10,000 or whatever it is, but I'm telling you, in the long run, build your resume, get the experience, because school is great and that's your ticket to get in the first door. But once you get the first job, we just don't really care where you went to school. Unless I don't know. I've had kids come in that were Ivy League kids, and I've had kids come in that were UW. I'm a University of Washington, Seattle. This didn't exist back then, so that's all we had. That was my undergraduate, and I probably do favor them a little bit because I think they're smarter, right? University of Washington, well, nothing against Western, but PLU, they're nice schools, but UW is a great school. When you go to New York, they know where the University of Washington is, okay? They do know who you are, right? So I would just say, but build your resume. Think about where you're going to work. We talked earlier about mentors. If I could work with a successful advisor, I don't care as much about the firm that I'm at, because if I think that Poonam, did I get that right?
Una,
Poonam
Yeah.
is gonna mentor me, that's value, right? And anyways,
No,
I get a little passionate on these subjects, so.
well, Kirk, you had, and I think this flows into it, you'd mentioned networking. I'm curious, just real quick, how many of you have a robust network right now that's gonna help you land your first job? Yeah, okay, so a couple of you might know some people, which is good. I would highly encourage you to build that out, and there's a multitude of resources that you can do to that you can go participate in or get involved in to kind of do that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how important it is to have these folks in your life, and maybe some personal anecdotes as well, if you have any?
Yeah, so a perfect example of networking on a deep level. So putting your name on a LinkedIn list does nothing. The reason why LinkedIn exists is for the introduction, right? So if you go onto my LinkedIn, I have to decide whether I'm going to accept you first. I want you to know I have not done that yet, but I had a good conversation over the weekend that thinks I'm going to start doing that. But you can see that I know someone, and you want to get to know that person. And that's what LinkedIn is about. It's about being linked in the network. Networking is everything. In fact, your new hire is because you knew them. It's a perfect example. But you can't just be a name. You have to have a relationship. And so there's always the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. To me, the 4th R is the most important, and that's the relationships. And that's getting to know someone on a deeper level than just getting their card and doing a LinkedIn. It's keeping them up to date with what you're doing, letting them know your success, reaching out to them on a regular basis and checking in on what they're working on and how you can help. And volunteering is a great way to build your resume when no one will hire you. I was an intern, you were an intern. That really helped. My first job in this business came from the branch manager that I interned for. And I didn't even work for him, but he sold the manager here on me. Because he said, I worked with that guy for 6 months. Let me tell you who he is. And then you have to build your own reputation. What are you going to be? So you want to communicate clearly, but you have to have a message. So you got to have a good message, communicate clearly. You want to know what you're trying to share. What am I trying to share with you? I had a client this morning, so I won't take you through the whole situation, but at the end, she said, you know why we have you? Because there's a lot of financial advisors. She said, because you always explain things the way we can understand them. You make the complicated easy to understand, and then we can take action. It's the same thing when you're selling yourself. You're going to do these interviews online, which is trivial. This pre-recorded tape. I did a little Googling here to see what that is. I think that's fantastic. You get to tell your story, and no one's going to interrupt you. So make sure you know what's my message. I want to communicate clearly. I want to make sure they know that I can work in a team, that I can work well with others, that I can be a leader when called upon. And then you want to ask for what you're looking for. So we call it ask for the order. You have to say, and I hope to work at Accenture because I know, and you do your research. I know Accenture is this, this, and this, and it fits perfectly, by the way. And then the question is, and what does that mean to you? That's the difference between a feature and a benefit. Feature is we have 14,000 ATMs. The benefit is what it means to you. You can get money 24 hours a day. Which one's more important to the person? They just want to get the money, right? They don't care about 14,000 ATMs or 22 million ATMs. So you want to put it in context of, because of your organization, I am specifically reaching out to you, and this job interests me because I believe I'm a good fit because I have this, this, and this. And you address what they're looking for in the posting. That clear communication, and you can do all that, by the way, in 4 minutes if you need to, because that's what we do all the time when we're meeting with a new client. Somebody walks in and they're like, I heard some good things about you. You have a reputation. That's great. I can get them. I can lose them. Question is, what am I going to tell them? And I don't leave anything to chance. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know when I'm going to say it, but it starts with asking questions. What are you looking for? How do you judge success in a financial advisor relationship? What's your experience been? You can do the same thing with an employer. Call up and say, tell me, the receptionist, by the way, is the gatekeeper. They're the ones that know everything, right? They're like the building superintendent. They know everybody. They know everything. Tell me, what's it like to work there? What do they look for? What people have been successful and what has made them successful? I'll give you a couple minutes of their time. Always be super nice to them. Because if you're not nice to them, you don't get to the next person and when you want. And then make sure you address those issues when you're doing something like that tape.
I'd be curious, how many of you have a mentor? And then I'll go to your question next. How many of you have a mentor currently? A couple? Okay, I know plenty of folks younger than me, folks older than me, did it differently depending on what the technology was, what the decade was. Most recently, there's someone that I met from the Puyallup area. I actually demoed them PitchBook. He was working for an investment fund in Nebraska, actually, of all places. And we got to talking, and he told me about his background, and he's in aviation. And one of the most fascinating things I thought, when he was 16 years old, he's from Washington State. He went to this aerospace school up in Renton or somewhere around there, but it's like a high school that's a airfield. Knew he wanted to fly planes, right? When he was 16, he reached out to a senior VP at Boeing. On LinkedIn had been around for a couple of years, right? Reached out, was like, I love planes. I want to do this stuff. I'm highly interested in this. Your name has appeared on a couple of things that I've read about. Are you open to lunch? And it's like, he was 16, so he had to have his parents initially. But that gumption to just do that initially, that's huge. And it takes nothing from you. And it also is a huge flex of those soft skills. If you're uncomfortable doing things like that, I'd highly suggest trying to put yourself into those uncomfortable shoes and take a couple of steps. It's going to be very helpful. You had a question there. I wanted to make sure it was addressed.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. It's good to see you guys. My name's KJ. I had a question in terms of timelines. So you guys talked about the hiring process. You said you've hired before. I'm sure we've all done our research on when to start looking for jobs. But for you guys who have hired people, when do you guys start looking for people who are coming in? For example, I'm junior year. Should I start looking for places I can work at after university now? When should I start looking, or what's pretty broad, but I don't know if you know what I'm getting at.
Can I take one stab at that real quick? So PitchBook has a lot of internship programs. They do it with UW and WSU. Feel free to LinkedIn. I don't know if they're running a campaign now. I think they do it based off the school quarters and stuff. But from a corporate, in finance roles too, you don't have to go into sales or whatever, right? But most of these tech companies, especially in Seattle, will have internship programs. Get in as soon as you can. Load up your schedule. Pretend you're working already. Make it a 40, make it a 50-hour work week. Doing things outside of just your education that are going to benefit what you want to get into. So heck yeah, man. It's as many as you could take advantage of that fit what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
That would be my 2 cents.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
So I got to follow up on that. So one of the things I've been thinking while we're talking, you can believe me or not, but I believe this is how you will get a job. Okay. If you want to network, you want to do all this, I think as a university student, and you can start when you're a freshman, you should start now, whatever level you're at. You can go to LinkedIn. If I'm a connection for you, you should look at all my friends and who it is. But you have a free pass, and the free pass is this. Hi, I'm a student at the University of Washington, Tacoma. I'm really interested in what you do for a living. Could I come in and take 15 minutes? Would you mind just sharing with me how you got started? We love to talk about ourselves.
Love it.
You will make right? I will talk to any of you, clearly. Right?
And who's going to say no?
No one's going to say
That's also
no.
good though. If someone says no, you're not wasting.
But if they do, that's okay. But you have a chance, a free pass to go right past go. You win. You get that 15 minutes, and listen. Just ask them questions. One of the things we learn, and we're talking a lot up here, but we know in a successful client meeting, we don't talk very much. We listen a lot. Right? The more we listen, the more our clients think we're really smart. It's just a phenomenon. But I'm telling you, if you're gonna go look for a job, absolutely you start when you're a junior. But everyone in here right now, just call somebody out and say, just pick a firm, pick somebody, start calling, say, hey, I saw you were in the Puget Sound Business Journal and you were top 40 under 40. I'm a student at the University of Washington Tacoma campus, and I have an interest in finance, accounting, whatever it is. Could I just visit with you about how you got where you're at? Just I promise to be respectful and be respectful. Go listen and ask them, and you will learn things, and you will make a friend.
Well,
And that's
I would almost take it just one more, because now you can like spy on people pretty easily. Like, this is what I always do. If a client makes an appointment with me or a referral or something, you don't really know them. So you can just like do a search on Facebook, right? And you can just kind of like see their picture, you can see their family, you can see what they're interested in, blah, blah. It's pretty easy. And so you can kind of get a feel for like what they're like, what they're interested in. They're like, because you want to make a connection.
Yes.
So you want to like find the thing that's gonna be a connection. I mean, it sounds, but like if there's financial advisors, you can go to any firm and then there's a page for that firm. There's all the advisors that work there. You can just click on all their profiles and there's like a little bio about each person. And it says the things about them, like into whatever.
Lead my community basketball, youth basketball
Yeah,
team.
like if you're super into soccer, we have a guy in our branch that was a professional soccer player for the Sounders, so it's like, well, I want to like, something that you could, I mean, I've gotten clients from people that just think it's cool that I'm Indian or a woman, or they wanted a woman that, whatever the things I have listed on my bio. I don't
Which you didn't have to do anything for that. That literally came to you just because you put yourself out there in the universe, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's huge too.
It's just who I am. Or one time I got a job because I had on my resume that I used to do work for the CASA Foundation, and I was on their board, which is court-appointed special advocate for abused and neglected children. And I had on there on my resume because I had won an award for that. And literally the guy told me, the CFO of the company told me that was the thing that stood out for him. It had nothing to do with my qualifications or anything. Like, I was obviously qualified for the job, but he's like, that's because
That's the first checkbox, is being qualified. It's like, what else are you gonna bring to the table?
right, but that's because he really thought that was, so it's just put all the, like, be interesting, put all the, anyway.
Yeah, so I like that you brought that up because I interned with the First Generation Student Initiatives office down here. In fact, Kendra is one of my colleagues there now. Working in a place that might not directly connect with what I'm majoring in or what I'm looking to go into, is that something that you would say, like, you guys look for, or not exactly look for?
It's just like, because it shows that you're well-rounded, you have other interests, you're not just.
I've coached wrestling, you know what I mean? I've had people like, that's literally garnered me business before from just like D1 wrestlers. They're like, oh, you were oh yeah. It's like, then I'm selling their firm, a financial database after that because they're like, oh yeah, I wrestled D1 and blah, blah. And then it's like, oh, cool, yeah, I coach a team. Like,
I would say, like, someone told me just a million years ago, like, be interesting. Like, I've always, and have said that to my kids. Like, I have a son that's a sophomore in college right now, and I have a daughter she's out of college, she's working. She's actually just applied to law school now, but it's like, this summer, he's in mechanical engineering, but he's done 3 internships in mechanical engineering. And this summer, he just is like super into soccer. He's a club soccer player. So he's just like, I'm going to coach soccer this summer. I don't want to do. And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, people want to know that you do other things. He's a skier and there's more to him than mechanical engineer.
Sure.
Don't forget you get a free pass because you're a student.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna come back to that.
All right.
Anyone's gonna take your call if you say, hey, I'm a UW Tacoma student.
Yeah.
Can I have 15 minutes?
Yeah. So a
And then
couple,
you go be interesting.
so if I can piggyback on that. So this school with this dean is so lucky. We've got the MEC, we've got advice, we have a board that sits on the school. I'm whatever it's called, executive in residence. There's like 8 of us. We have all dedicated ourselves to the school. You can call on any of those people. They've already committed their heart to it. That's the first thing. Second, you're given 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it in that proportion. Listen twice as much as you talk. Third thing, if you're at work, I don't care if you're in your area of expertise and what you want to do or not, look for things to distinguish yourself. Volunteer. My nephew works for Boeing. He went in, I don't even know what he got hired as. All I know is there was a bunch of parts and they couldn't keep track of them. There's 6 million parts on the 747. They couldn't keep track of them. He happened to know Excel, like every one of you. And he developed a program to keep track of parts. I saw him this weekend. I said, "Are you on strike?" He goes, "Oh no, I'm now salaried." This kid is making 6 figures, doesn't have an engineering degree. I want him to go back to school, right? I want him to get the engineering degree. But what did he do? He saw an opportunity to build some efficiency. He stepped out of his comfort level. He said, "Do you mind if I work on this?" They said, "We don't care as long as you get your work done." He worked extra, he got it done. And now he's part of management at Boeing, which is a great job. So in your job, look for ways to offer, and I don't care if it's you're the person that makes sure that all the birthdays get celebrated, or if you're the one that brings everybody together on the volunteer day that the firm does, or whatever, or start volunteering at an organization that you do love. Don't go someplace you don't care about. That will come across. But if you really enjoy animals, volunteer at the animal shelter. And be great at it.
Yeah.
Be early. If you're on time, you're late, right? You've heard this before. People are in my class. I got here today at noon. Why? I wanted to understand what was going on. I needed to make sure I had parking. I wasn't going to be late. I'm ready to go. That's my style, right? So that's what you want to do. Make sure your reputation is, I am this type of a person, and they can count on me to do that, because that's going to build your resume. People will hire you to do something if they don't pay you for it. In social media, start writing a newsletter for the animal shelter to raise money. Everyone loves that. There's lots of things you can do for free that will build your resume where you don't have to get hired and you don't have to have an internship. It doesn't have to have a lot of formality to it.
I'd love to do some more questions, just kind of, what else we got? Yes, back there.
Hi, my name is Colin. I'm a sophomore. I have 2 quick questions. My first being, as a sophomore, a lot of my classes are not really tailored towards finance. It's a lot of prerequisites, a lot of science and writing. What would you recommend for me to learn more in that area when my classes aren't directly teaching it? And then my second question is there a specific minor that you recommend to improve your resume, to improve yourself as being qualifications, or do you think it really doesn't matter as much? Thank you.
Finance is always a great degree, and then you can do whatever. I think if you come in with a finance degree, you can get all the certifications. If you want to go private alternatives, you want to get a CIAI, or if you want to go CFA, or you want to go Series 7, you want to be a broker. I think you can start doing research on all that stuff now to kind of point you to the right path. But the finance degree typically then feeds into all that stuff. That's what I've seen.
Are you wanting to do like wealth management?
Yeah, that's the area I'm thinking of. I'm kind of stuck in the middle. My dad makes good money doing sales and marketing. I'm kind of wanting to go the finance route. I haven't really stuck my head into either of those.
Together.
Exactly. So that's what my dad said. I can use them together.
Psychology. There's a whole field called behavioral finance, which is huge and super interesting, I think. We had someone in our Gig Harbor office get a master's degree. You can get a PhD in behavioral finance. It is so interesting. Because it's just about the psychology of money and managing money and people's emotions regarding money and wealth. and why they do the things they do and largely kind of the stupid things they do. I mean, that's what, I mean, how much of our job is managing people's emotions?
100%. The money part's easy. Anybody can do that.
Mine's more transactional.
But you know, one of the most,
There's something to be said about transactional if you don't want to do the relationship side of things too.
Really therapists, a lot of time, couples come in, the husband, you know, is like, let's be super aggressive with our money, I wanna buy this and this stock, and the wife's like a scaredy cat, and she wants it all in CDs and doesn't wanna take any risk, and we have to like we're like a marriage counselor now, we have to like navigate what would be better for the couple, and they haven't even talked about it to each other. They're waiting to come see us because they get in arguments about money, and we have to do all of that in like an hour and a half. And what are they going to do with like their whole retirement account, which is kind of a big deal. So like it's just an art to, you know, really, and then that's so much of it, the emotional piece, so the psychology of it, and how you're gonna do that, and you have to be comfortable having really hard conversations with people sometimes, like that's not gonna work. Like they're like, oh, I'm gonna retire in 5 years. You're like, really? And how are you gonna do that? You know, like, did you think? You know,
Is there a windfall that you got?
Yeah.
On paper?
one of the most successful people that I came across that had a minor that I thought made no sense until I needed him was his major was finance. And by the way, why do you have to take all these other classes? Why does the university mandate that? What do you think?
It's so that we're like more well-rounded and.
Bingo. He had a minor in Chinese. So I had a Chinese client. Chinese is their first language, English is their second for many. We were so much further into the relationship with him because he could speak Chinese than Goldman Sachs, which was who I was up against. And they're formidable competitors. So you can make anything work, but do something that dovetails, that you can see where there will be some overlap. Yeah, there's an old IQ, right? But she's talking about is EQ, emotional quotient.
There's a sports management stand here. I've sold pitch book to a couple of multi-billion-dollar private equity funds that are specifically investing in sports franchises, like Arctos Sports Partners, Redbird Capital Partners. And these people have raised billions from institutional investors, and they're plugging it into NFL teams and stuff. So it's like, I don't know, if you're a sports dude, you know what I mean? Finance and sports management, you know what I mean? Like try to find that intersection, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing, I guess, is it doesn't really matter. There's not really one specific minor, but choose something that you think that you enjoy that you can connect.
And then you got to sell yourself. You have to sell yourself.
You in your, you know, in your specific, because you could be pretty specific, like you don't, you know, like a doctor, you know, you don't necessarily have to be a generalist, like, yeah, Chinese or, you know, Spanish or whatever, you know, you're going to focus on what market. So maybe you might want to know more
I
about
think,
that.
so we've talked a lot about like different skills that a wealth manager that's in our role, but I'm gonna go back to my point. This is how I did it. So I'm gonna tell you when I was at the University of Washington, I went around and I interviewed branch managers at investment firms. And I was a sophomore and I said, what do you want to see? I told you when I was 12, I knew what I wanted to do, and I went and I said, hey, can you tell me what you do? I sat with advisors. I would cold call for them, I'd do whatever I could. But the key was I asked the manager, I said, when I come back, what do you want to see on my resume? What's going to get you to hire me? And you know what they told me? Well, you look really young, because I mean, I'm 63 and I know I only look 20, but no, I mean, I still don't shave every day. So, but I mean, when I was 23, I looked about 16, right? And they said, you might as well get a master's degree. Not that I needed it, but just spend some more time because I was really young. And you need some national sales experience. Well, I had an opportunity to work for Johnson & Johnson while I was going to school in their healthcare division. So I went to all these different places. I'm gonna tell you, when I got ready to apply, I could have worked, not to brag, but every single firm in the city that I applied for offered me the job. Because I listened to what they're looking for. And again, I think this applies to whatever area. Back to my thing, if you don't know, then do the informational interview. Just sit down, get to know people, find out if this is a job that interests you. But when you're like, get to that point like me, you want a job, go in and ask the hiring person, what do you want to see? I'm not asking for a job now. They'll shut you off. They'll say, oh, put your resume in this 5,000 person pile.
Exactly, yeah.
You're a student. Hey, I just need some help. What direction would you like this to be? When I come back with my resume, what do you want to see on there? And I did exactly that. And I'm telling you, I got jobs everywhere I went, and I could pick the firm I wanted to.
Well, and you also built relationships with each of them. I'm sure you still know those people. I'm guessing you still know
They're
them.
all dead. I mean, most of the guys that I've done, and that's not an exaggeration. I mean, most of them are dead. But actually, it was a funny story. So we talked about how I was a branch manager here in Seattle. And it was funny because I was over the Bellevue branch, and I'm in there, and one of the advisors, I'm talking to him. I go, man, you look really familiar. He was the old Smith Barney branch manager that gave me that first, hey, go back and get a master's degree. And this is like 20 years later. I'm technically his manager. And so it was kind of that story. But really, don't underestimate the ability for you to go in and then just ask them what they want to see and build that resume. Because we've told you a lot about a very specific niche. But I think this works in most areas. Hey, what do you want to see? And they'll all have their own opinions, but you'll get a.
What else? Any other questions that we can answer? Would love to, maybe something about what to expect, negotiations, pay wise, how to, anything around that kind of stuff. Yes, again.
Starting out, again, that's fun. Starting out, what do you think would be the hardest part of your job? When you were first starting out, not now that you were
Getting the clients. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I mean, I cold call that. I would make like 60 calls a day. Like,
Frankly, if you can show me that you can bring in new clients, I mean, you want to get a job, show me you can bring me 100 million in assets and you're hired.
yeah.
So it's a little bit hard to get acclimated when it's first.
Well, it's a different world than it was when we were getting started. So I feel like,
I mean, even we have only been 10 years, but it's like technology is so different. Like the things, they weren't looking for front facing as much 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's like that soft skills is like everybody I talk to as a hiring man, it's soft skills. We need people that be able to present, critically think, gestate on what we're seeing from an AI model output and make critical thinking skills around it, not just say, cool, sounds good. Like the model says it's dope. You know what I mean? So
I would be like, have a plan. Have a plan for how you're gonna get clients. Probably not cold calling, which is what we all did, because there was no caller ID when we were doing, and people actually answered the phone in those days.
we still sell a lot off cold calls. I will let you know. It's still, we're ripping dials. It's, it's.
To me, the biggest thing is resiliency.
Yeah,
The world is brutal.
emotional resilience.
Emotional resiliency is exactly right. You have to come to terms with that. You're going to get turned down. I'm a big baseball fan. In fact, I was talking to your sports management professor, and we were talking about baseball is a sport of failure. If you hit 3 times out of 10, they'll put you in the Hall of Fame, which means you failed 7 out of 10. Business is not a lot different. You're going to make a lot of calls. People are going to go, no, thank you. And you need to come to grips with the fact that that is not personal. They don't even know you. So when I stop calling people and they tell me, don't effing call me again. And then I wait 90 days and I call them again. Because they'll forget they said that to me.
That is so.
Your damn company keeps calling.
Yeah, but it really is about resiliency and knowing that it's not personal. You may catch them at the wrong time. If you make a mistake, learn from the mistake. Move forward, be better the next time. And your first call, since we all started, I mean, my whole, by the way, I hate cold calling. It was the worst. My kids will tell you the story. I'll tell you the story. Our goal was 30 calls a day. I like Skittles. I put 30 Skittles on my desk in the morning. Every time I had a successful call, I got a Skittle. I was like Pavlov's dog. You think about it to this day, if I think about cold calling, I just want some Skittles, right? You have to trick yourself to say, I'm going to accomplish my goal and I'm not going to let anything get in the way because they don't know me. They don't mean it. I just caught them at the wrong time. And no only means no right now. Once you come to grips with that, because I'm going to tell you the other part, this is the worst part. Finding a job today is horrible. It's a horrible process. You're going to go on Indeed. The hiring managers are going to get 400. This is after they go through the 2,000. They're going to get 200, 300, 400 resumes. How do they sort through it? If it's a work from home job, you're working against everybody in the world because they can live anywhere. It's horrible. So you have to know, I'm gonna apply 100 times to get one. But you can do it that way, or you can start building your relationships now in the industries where you're interested in, so that when you go out and you say, I need your help. I mean, let me just do this here. Just work with me. I didn't even have to tell him I wanted to shake his hand. This is the American way right here. If you put your hand out, someone will do it. Try it. Just go up to a stranger. Hey, they'll just do it. It really works. If you say, I need your help, very valuable words. I need your help. I'm trying to accomplish this. People want to help. It's this idea we give to get. But you have to give first, right? So you don't stand in front of the stove and say, when you give me heat, I'll give you wood. Just the opposite. I am calling because I need your help. I'm calling because I want to volunteer. I'm calling because I said, that's how I started here. How do I get in the University of Washington? I have somebody that introduces me to the dean. I come into the dean. I say, tell me what you're trying to accomplish. He says, I said, well, have you thought about this and this and this? And we'll do a stock market. By the way, that's one thing you should all do. Sign up for the stock market simulation in February.
Yeah, actually, how many of you did participate in that, by the way? That is... So you don't understand, like, satellite campuses don't do this stuff. Like, you have such a huge opportunity at this university to take. You have a Bloomberg terminal. You have access to PitchBook. You have access to Cap IQ. You can learn financial modeling. You could prep to be an investment banker and go see one of these private capital firms up in Seattle and try and get an internship there, right? Are you monetarily like motivated? Are you looking for something that has more critical thinking? Like, these are all things you need to think about yourself and then put it on the paper or however you do it and start actually making a call to somebody in your network or in your community that you can have a conversation, a meaningful dialogue or conversation about, right? But it is just imperative. You have to stand out now. Like it's and the resume is just, it's just so that you can submit something. You know what I mean? It's 400, 1,000 people. It's machines looking at them, right? So you got to make sure the right words are on there. You're going to need them. All of you are going to need to know how to write AI prompts. If you can't do that, that's going to be like not knowing how to do Excel either, right? So just like know these things, understand these specific subsectors of your market that you are interested, and start actually making progress towards having dialogue so that you can set yourself up to get in the door as quickly as possible.
You know, Pat, you brought something up. Keep track. You know how many people we do reviews for? And at the end of the year, I say, okay, I want you to do your self-review first, and then I'll do your review. And they go, well, I don't know what to write. Well, what did you accomplish this year? They can't remember. We can't remember what we did last week, let alone the beginning of the year. Have a folder that's the Celebrate You folder. You learn Bloomberg, you get a certificate, put that in the folder. You get a good class, you serve on the Finance Association, put it in the folder. All of those are the things that people are going to look for, because everybody that applies is going to have a degree. That's table stakes. That's just to get in the door. The question is, what did you do with that? And so keep track of what you're doing so that you can write about it and you can persuade the person to trust you enough to hire you.
One question for you, and if you don't know, this is fine. Do you have numbers on how many UW folks have come through your businesses over the years in terms of hirings, or a rough number or anything like that?
A lot of years.
Yeah, also, I have less years than that, so yes,
I mean, at the bigger firms, obviously a lot of.
yeah,
go
Yeah,
through it.
a lot.
yeah.
I would just say that I think it's good. You went to a good school. It's good enough. Don't worry about
Yeah.
who you're competing against. That, to me, honestly, that degree, it's good. It showed that you worked hard and you could accomplish. It's more about your story and who you are.
It's about,
The
it's,
network is,
and how you come across, like, are people, are the advisors, how to introduce you to their clients? How do you show up? How do you communicate? I would really, they do, what's it called? Yeah, do it over and over and over again. Practice, ask for feedback. Make it good. Polish it up, even just video yourself, they have those, there's TikToks and all that kind of, those videos, you guys are all,
pull your Snapchat, do a little monologue.
you guys are all probably doing it, but like, ask for feedback, like pretend that because that's, we all have, and they have these videographers come to our office and do like team videos and like, I don't know, I don't know if you guys are doing that, but it's like not even just about your profile picture anymore. It's about
No, it's more.
it's about your video, and so it's like, how are you coming across and social media, like.
I think it's easy to discount how you're coming across. I think everyone here is like, you really need to be presentable.
Yeah.
And critical about the way that, and articulate.
That's gonna be the next thing. It's not the next thing, it's the thing, like how.
So, yeah, I was gonna say the other thing, just remember, I'm sure that you both have to say, I get hundreds of emails every day. I get hammered on LinkedIn. And so the differentiation, if you knock on my door or something that shows that you connected with me, but I don't know who you are. When you first, honestly, if any of you told me you were here and you want to connect on LinkedIn, I'm easy. But if I don't know who you are, and I think you might have even sent me a LinkedIn invitation, we never met, I'm not going to respond yet. Because I get hundreds of those from all over the globe, and I don't know if it's a scam or not. I'm an old guy, I'm not that smart, right? But if you're personable enough, and it gets back to this, we talk about the cold calling. Well, cold calling is alive and well, but it's a little nuanced, right? It's, hey, again, when our clients' kids are going to school, I do this all the time. They'll come in and I give them the same talk. Go into my LinkedIn, find companies that you want to get an introduction to. If I know them and I've had that interview with you on, hey, I'm a college student, I will try and make that introduction and I will help you with that.
We've hired a few people at PitchBook from the UW campus, from I literally talked to people outside, and then, it ended up going that way, right? Like, also put people in contact with other businesses that I just know are hiring folks when PitchBook isn't hiring for that role, right? Again.
Some of you are going to be petrified to pick up the phone and call me. And I understand that. That you could actually be rejected. To your point, it has nothing to do with you. I probably had a bad day and my stock went down, right? It has nothing to do with you. And it's just that tomorrow you could call me and I think you're awesome, right? Because we love UW Tacoma students.
It's just a formula. It's just numbers. You just gotta keep putting yourself out there. It's like, whatever, way back
The
when.
easy method, the blast email that you can send out thousands of emails, but no one cares anymore.
Yeah.
Because the Russians have been doing that for a long time, trying to get me to buy everything that's not real. And so I don't know who it is, right? Somebody's been trying to hack me forever. But if you can figure out a way to add that personal touch, my son's had a pretty successful way of connecting with people. It sounds simple, and we spend a lot of money on high-end video stuff, but he'll take a selfie video and say, hey, we've connected on LinkedIn. I just want you to know, here I'm in Tacoma. I'm a real person. Love to have lunch with you. Well, no one does that. I shouldn't be telling you, right? Because that's his big secret. It's not super high end, it's an iPhone, but he's had tremendous response because people now realize, oh, you're just across the street. I know, yeah, okay, you're not somebody from Russia that's hacking me, right?
But also he comes across well in that video.
Absolutely. So, I mean, he's very articulate.
Yeah.
So while we got about 10 more minutes here, a couple more questions that we got. Anybody that hasn't gone yet, you guys are all gregarious.
Before we do that, can I just jump onto this? So when we cold called, we had a mirror on our desk. Not to check my hair. I had to have a smile in my voice. I had to be interesting. We sort of started with that. You gotta be interesting, you gotta be engaging. You know what else we did? Stand up when you talk. You just have more energy when you're standing up. We pace around, we had headsets, so it was, back then it wasn't wireless, so all of a sudden you'd pull your phone off the desk because you got all fired up. But you need, when you're gonna do it, get up for the game. You got one shot, right? So let's make sure we're prepared, we're practiced, and then we actually go out and do our very best.
Any of you that are a little quiet that you got a question, but you don't want to ask it, find the confidence to ask it right now, or I'm going to go back to the couple of folks that keep asking questions here. Yes.
Well, you brought up like negotiating salaries, and I always feel like that's a really awkward conversation. So do you guys have any tips on like how to do, especially like when it's your first job? Like I feel like you as yourself like also don't feel like, oh, I'm worthy enough of like a high salary yet. So how do you do that in like a way where you're not selling yourself short? But
I think the first thing is, hey, you're going to probably be in an entry role, right? And what are you bringing? Are you value creating? Are you bringing anything to the table that justifies more, right? And then I would look at your comps. I think in an entry role, you have a lot less leverage so it's more about making sure you're not underselling yourself. So if you get 3 different offers and one of them's way lower or 2 of them are lower, that's where you take that into your hands and go with the best option that you have, right? I think that comes into play a lot. Negotiating, as I've like gone up higher on the structure, there's other like levers you can pull and look at too, right? But until you're there and you haven't been at the company too, sometimes you won't know all those internal, functions. That would be my 2 cents on it. So the comps piece, you just want to have comps. And if someone's going to undervalue you, again, know your assessed value of yourself and take the opportunity that's going to fit what you monetarily want out of that opportunity, right? Like some people want to do that job because I want to be in fish and wildlife and I want to be outside all the time. I don't care about money, right? I'm highly motivated. How can I make as much money in as little time as possible? Always, right? So you got to know your personality there too.
Well, specifically, like it's for the field, for the type of job, are you talking about like what we do, or are you talking, because it's a different way of being compensated
That too.
so are you talking about wealth management?
Yeah,
And then I
yeah.
can speak specifically to that, which is different. Because you're not actually negotiating salary so much. I mean, you are maybe when you're first getting started, but you do have to kind of have a high degree of self-confidence, even just to be going into it in the first place. And usually they give you a runway, they'll give you a salary at the beginning, but just generally, I mean, rarely is it a salary job in general. It might be a salary for the first couple of years. You might get a guarantee.
Most of the big firms have a program that will provide a couple years, kind of a mentorship program
Yeah.
like you're talking about. Merrill
Yeah.
Lynch, I know, has a program for
Yeah.
firms that are there. And it's a 3-year program. I know you've got kind of a system that.
Yeah, but mostly in this field, you make what you make based on the revenue you produce.
Assets under management.
Assets under
You typically get a percentage of assets under
Yeah,
management.
so the better you are at having assets under management, in other words, the more clients you have, the more assets you have under management, the more money you make. So you really aren't negotiating a salary with anybody, you're just, because you're really good at what you do, and you're so good at what you do, that more people are talking about it and sending you more and more money, that you just make more and more money, and you don't even want to have a salary, because no one would pay you that much of a salary as what you make not having a salary.
You know, in finance, there's lots of jobs. So we're all financial advisors. I kind of feel bad for you because you kind of got one sense of the industry. There's operations,
Yeah.
there's administration, there's compliance, there's record keeping, there's all these different kinds of jobs. So if those are the types of jobs where you're gonna go in and you're gonna negotiate a salary, the first thing to know, and go on Glassdoor or go on one of these salary, to know sort of what is that job worth? What does it pay for? And then the second thing is to be able to articulate the value you're going to bring. So, you know, if you know the range is 46 to 52, and they're offering you 46, you can say, and you want to be appreciative. Thank you so much for the offer. I'm very excited about this position. May I ask you? And then you can say, you know, I feel with my education and my experience and the value that I'm going to bring to your firm, that I feel that it would be better if I had a salary of $50,000. And you have to say it with a straight face. You have to look them in the eye. This is not the time to shrink down, okay? But the other part of it is know what you're asking for. So many times people want the money. And you know why some of those firms have to pay so much? Because it's a horrible place to work. And you'll wish you didn't work there. So look for the bigger picture. What are the benefits? What are the hours? Can you work from home 3 days a week? Do you have to commute? Do you have to do all of the different things? Who's the person you're going to work for? Is the work inspiring? Is that person going to be a mentor? Are they going to take an interest in you to help develop you? Because the best way to make grade, to move up in the organization, is to have somebody ahead of you that's going to make it. So Vice President Harris, we're going to find out in 40 days whether she's a president. If she's a president, all the people that have worked for her get a raise. They're all going to become the secretary of this and the head of that, because she trusts those people. She's gotten to know them over time, and she's going to hire the people that she has the greatest confidence in. And so just having the right mentor, working for somebody that takes an interest in you, we have a few minutes. Let me just close with this story. So last year, I taught this class, and I got to know one of our students here. And for whatever reason, we just hit it off. And so she called me and said, hey, would it be okay if I put you down as a reference? I already told you, my heart's already in the school. I'm happy to do it. The hiring manager is the best friend of my sister-in-law. I see her 5 times a year at every birthday, Christmas, everything like that. So she calls me and says, hey, Kirk, you're not going to believe this. I'm going to hire this person. Don't call her. I want to tell you, because when I saw your name, I knew. If you say she's good, she's good. Here's the problem. I don't think they're paying her enough. So I told her, you can't take that. I refuse. So I'm going to get you a job at Edward Jones, because if you like the job, like Sam last year, Sam, who was the head of finance, I got to know Sam, went to work for Morgan Stanley as an associate, as a branch associate. I said, do you like the job that Sam was doing? Oh, I like that job. Okay. So now I am cold calling. I'm calling my colleagues going, I know you're looking for a person. Let me tell you about this person. I know her. She was his. She did that. She's a good student. She's getting interviews that she didn't even know the jobs were available because I took an interest in her. And I said, and you have to pay her as much as you can. She's got a great offer. Okay, it was a good offer. She got a great offer, but you're going to have to go to the top of the scale. They're like, okay, all right, let's do it. She's working through that system right now, and I hope she comes to work there. That's the difference, and that's really what you're looking for. Is you're looking for the whole package, not just the dollar amount. Sometimes you take a little less to get a lot more.
At a small firm, I really want to know you want to work at the firm. And salary is, again, it's simple. You just kind of get a feel for it. Somebody comes in and all they want to talk about is the best dollar. Well, problem with that is I'm going to spend a lot more than your salary by hiring you. And like most investments, I'm willing to do that because I think over time that's going to benefit my firm. And I need a return on that money. I'm an investor. If I put 100 grand into you, I want 200 grand. I'm not looking for my money back. I'm looking for a return. I'll close with this one liner. When I worked at Wells Fargo, understand this, there's 2 kinds of people at the bank, and I would say at any firm. There are those who bring meat to the cave and those who chew on it. Figure out who you are, because if you can bring meat to the cave, you have more flexibility, you have more leverage. If you're just chewing on it, well, you could be very good. We need those people. They serve us well, but that's going to be a narrower range. So if you want the big money, be someone who brings meat to the cave. There you go.
Yeah, I think we're at 4 right there, guys. Thank you very much.
I anticipated I wouldn't get to say everything I wanted to, and I'm really glad I was with these very talented people. But I did write down the comments that I would tell you if I had a whole hour to myself. So if you'd like a copy of my comments, you're welcome to grab them.
And please, reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're all busy. We'll try and get through stuff as well. But if you have questions, you're looking to be pointed in the right direction, leverage your network, please. That's what we're here for.
That's a syllabus, not a.